You know, when you think about a massive hurricane,
Oh, yeah.
the most violent, the terrifying part, the part that literally rips the roofs off houses and like uproots ancient trees.
Right. The eye wall.
Exactly. The
Mhm.
eye wall. It's loud, it's chaotic, it's just absolute destruction.
Yeah, the physics of it are
Mm.
honestly staggering. I mean, the wind speeds are off the charts. The barometric pressure drops violently.
Yeah.
It's this towering wall of pure kinetic energy.
But if you somehow manage to punch through that violent eye wall and step into the eye itself, suddenly it's dead quiet.
Right.
The sky clears, the wind drops to almost nothing. You could light a match and the flame wouldn't even flicker.
It's an incredibly eerie phenomenon, really.
Yeah.
You are standing in the exact geometric center of one of the most massive forces of nature on the planet, but you wouldn't know it from the absolute silence surrounding you.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we are looking at the writings of a man trapped in the exact center of a political and religious hurricane. We are exploring the life and texts of the Bab, the founder of the Babi movement. And we're looking specifically at a period in late 1845 in the city of Shiraz, in what is now Iran.
Right. It's a period often referred to as his retirement.
Hmm.
And that hurricane metaphor is, well, it's perfectly apt for what was happening on the ground at that time.
Yeah, because just to set the scene for you listening at home, the Bab has just returned from a pilgrimage to Mecca. He has sparked this massive, wildly enthusiastic religious awakening across the region.
Huge momentum.
Right. But now he is under strict house arrest. The local authorities are on high alert. The traditional clergy are deeply agitated. They're actually calling for his execution.
Yeah, the eye wall of the hurricane is spinning violently all around him.
The tension in Shiraz at this moment is just palpable.
It really is. The nascent Babi community is facing entirely existential threats. I mean, one wrong move, one overly enthusiastic public proclamation by a follower, and it could trigger a massacre.
And yet, from the center of this storm, the Bab's public posture and the explicit instructions he is sending out to his followers is one of total, baffling quiet.
Yes.
He is telling them to hide, to blend in, to avoid conflict at literally all costs. It's a period of intense secrecy and deliberate de-escalation.
Very deliberate.
But, and here's the paradox we are going to explore today, within these quiet, seemingly compliant texts lie some of the most radical, cosmos-altering, metaphysical doctrines ever penned.
Which is really what makes this specific period so incredibly rich. We aren't just reading abstract, ivory tower theology today.
Right.
We're looking at a survival manual for a community under extreme threat. We're going to see how the deepest metaphysical truths were actually weaponized as tools for spiritual endurance on the ground.
Exactly. So we are going to unpack the Bab's spiritual doctrines of servitude and divine will.
Yeah.
We're going to explore the mind-bending physics of how human actions can actually alter divine decrees, which is a concept known as Bada.
That's a huge one.
It really is. We'll also delve into the mechanics of secret alchemical knowledge, look at the theology of an entirely unknowable God, and finally, we'll see how this vast cosmic reality demanded extreme social caution and unity on the part of everyday people.
Sounds like a lot to cover.
Okay, let's unpack this, because to understand the staggering cosmic authority the Bab is outlining in these texts.
Right. We first have to understand his absolute earthly surrender during this period. We really have to look at how he is positioning himself to the public and to the authorities.
Because if you read some of these letters from late 1845 without understanding the historical context, they almost sound like a full recantation.
They do.
To be blunt, it sounds like he's terrified and giving up.
It really does. I mean, let's look at a few letters addressed to prominent figures, like a follower named Mullah Javad. In these documents, the Bab engages in a highly deliberate anti-escalatory self-positioning.
Anti-escalatory, yeah.
He explicitly disavows being the gate, which is the literal translation of the title Bab. He disavows being the gate in the traditional expected Shi'i sense of being the official political deputy to the hidden imam.
Right, because the traditional expectation was that this gate figure would come with swords drawn, leading an army, dispensing political judgment.
Exactly.
Instead, he writes, and I'm quoting here, "I am a servant who hath believed in God and in his signs, and I am not of the idolaters."
Such a powerful statement.
It is. He goes on to say that the matter became confused among the people, and that he absolutely does not occupy the station of one vested with worldly authority or judgment or knowledge, such that people have to blindly obey him.
He even goes so far as to tell them to efface, to literally erase his previous writings.
Wait, erase them?
Yes, he states emphatically, "I do not stand upon any cause whose recognition is incumbent upon the people."
Wow.
Furthermore, in a highly publicized address at the Vakia Mosque in Shiraz, he publicly calls down the condemnation of God upon anyone who regards him as the traditional representative of the Imam.
So he's entirely distancing himself from that political role.
Completely. And he completely denies having any formal scholarly mastery of the traditional religious sciences.
Now, I have to stop here. Because if I'm a follower receiving this letter in 1845,
Yeah, put yourself in their shoes.
someone who has, risked my life, maybe lost my job or my standing in society to follow this movement,
Right.
and suddenly I get a letter from the founder saying, I have no authority, erase my books, I'm just a normal servant, I mean, I would feel completely betrayed.
Understandably.
Or I'd think the authorities had tortured him into a confession. It just feels completely contradictory to the religious awakening he just started.
That reaction makes complete sense from a conventional political standpoint, right?
Yeah.
Because if power is about asserting dominance, then backing down is weakness.
Yeah, exactly.
But what's fascinating here is that the Bab is operating on a completely different metaphysical axis. We see this elaborated brilliantly in a specific treatise he wrote during this time on divine lordship.
Okay, break that down for us, because I'm struggling to see the power in telling people to erase your own books.
Right, so in that treatise, the Bab clarifies that if he had previously seemed to claim vast authority or a station encompassing all sciences, it wasn't to build a cult of personality.
Okay.
It was only to highlight the greatness of divine unity. Before that divine unity, all created things, including himself as a physical human being, are submissive and non-existent.
Non-existent.
Yes. True lordship in this framework is mirrored most perfectly in utter servitude.
Utter servitude. Listening to this, it reminds me of a perfectly clear window pane.
Oh, how so?
Well, a perfectly clear window pane claims absolutely no light of its own. It doesn't generate light. It doesn't try to be the sun. It doesn't say, hey, look at me.
Right.
It is entirely empty of its own illumination. But it's exactly because of that emptiness, that perfect transparency, that the sun can shine through with such blinding force.
That's a great way to put it.
If the glass was painted or if it had its own little glowing lights on it, it would actually block the sun. By claiming nothing, it transmits everything.
Your window pane analogy perfectly captures the hidden metaphysical logic connecting human humility to the manifestation of divine power in these texts.
Really?
Yeah, this is the core of the paradox. By voiding himself of ego, of any earthly claims of political authority, of any academic credentials, he becomes the perfect, frictionless instrument for the divine.
The frictionless instrument.
Exactly. The less there is of the human ego, the more there is of God.
And I guess this is why he so forcefully rejects formal scholarly disputation, because in mid-19th century Persia, religious authority was heavily based on intense scholastic training.
Oh, absolutely. Memorizing grammar, logic, jurisprudence.
And the elite clergy repeatedly challenged him to debates or to a mubahala.
Right. And for context for the listener, a mubahala was a formal high-stakes religious duel. It was a trial by mutual execration where both sides would present their arguments and then literally pray for God to curse the liar.
Yeah.
It was a very public, very dramatic spectacle.
Sounds intense. But the Bab completely disavows this entire arena of proof.
He does.
He argues that divine proof is an innate event, a self-evident reality in the soul, not a magical spectacle or scholastic debate over Arabic grammar.
Right.
He outright says he doesn't know the conventions of language or the conjugation of forms the way the scholars do, and more importantly, he doesn't see any merit in that formal learning before God.
There is a really striking, almost humorous moment where he addresses this in one of his treatises. He critiques these highly trained formal scholars.
Oh, I love this part.
He says that when these clerics try to sit down and compose verses to rival his innate unlettered revelation, it's like a child saying in Persian, ba, ba.
Literally baby talk.
Yeah, exactly. It's baby talk. It's a sharp, devastating critique. He's saying, you have gathered all your massive books, you ponder, you falter, you draft and redraft, you use all your logical frameworks.
And what you produce is spiritual baby talk compared to the spontaneous, innate outpouring of divine verses.
Yes, the verses themselves and their profound impact on the human heart are the proof. The fact that they flow from someone claiming absolute servitude, someone without the crutch of formal elite education, is the miracle.
It really makes you wonder about your own life, doesn't it? Because we live in a world that is obsessed with asserting dominance, showcasing expertise, building up the ego, presenting our credentials on a silver platter.
So true.
We are taught to constantly shout our own value.
We are taught to paint the window pane, to use your metaphor.
Yes, exactly. But the Bab is modeling the exact opposite. He is demonstrating that ultimate spiritual authority is found in ultimate self-effacement.
Right.
True power isn't about how much you can assert your own ego. It's about how thoroughly you can surrender your ego so that something universally true can operate through you.
And that profound surrender brings us to an unavoidable philosophical collision. Because if true power is absolute servitude, and you perfectly surrender your will to God, well, how does your human will actually interact with the will of God?
Right. And this is where I start to get a headache.
It gets deep.
Because if God is pulling all the strings and the highest spiritual state is just surrendering to those strings, do we even matter?
This question.
If God has already decided the script of the universe, are we just actors hitting our marks? Because if so, why try?
You've just articulated one of the oldest, most fiercely debated theological dilemmas in human history: determinism versus free will.
Yeah, the classic debate.
And the Bab addresses this head-on during this period of house arrest by expanding deeply on a complex, tiered cosmology of divine alteration, known in Islamic theology as Bada.
Bada. Let's dive deep into this, because the Bab breaks down the universe into a very specific architecture to explain how God's will actually operates in real time.
It's a highly structured system,
Yeah.
and we need to understand the architecture before we can understand the movement within it.
Okay, lay it out for us.
To understand Bada, the Bab defines 3 distinct levels of reality. First, there is the realm of created possibility. Think of this as the vast, almost infinite field of everything that could happen.
Of the potentials.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Second, there's the decree, or qada. This is God's will actively moving toward a specific outcome.
Okay, the decree.
And third, there is the execution, or imda. This is the final sealed manifestation of that event in reality, the moment it actually happens.
Okay, so possibility, decree, execution. Where does Bada fit into this?
Bada translates roughly to alteration or emergence. It occurs in the space between the realm of possibility and the final execution.
So in the middle.
Right. The doctrine of Bada states that God's will is not a fixed, deterministic, unchangeable machine. God actually alters outcomes, shifts the decree within that realm of possibility based entirely on human action.
Wow.
And this happens up until the very millisecond of execution, or imda. Once a decree is executed, it is sealed forever. There is no further Bada. But until that final moment, the timeline is completely fluid.
Okay, hold on. I have to push back on this.
Okay.
I understand the mechanics you're describing, but logically, if God is all-knowing, if God sits outside of time and knows the beginning and the end, how can he change his mind?
Right.
Doesn't the idea of God altering a decree imply that he made a mistake, or that he didn't know the future to begin with?
That is precisely the critique that early Islamic rationalists, a group known as the Mu'tazilites, leveled against the traditional Shi'i concept of Bada.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they rejected it completely. They argued that if God changes a decree, it implies ignorance on God's part. It implies God learned new information based on what humans did, which violates the concept of an all-knowing God.
Exactly. So how does the Bab resolve that? Because it sounds like a paradox.
The Bab resolves it by drawing a massive, uncrossable line between God's transcendent, unknowable essence, which is entirely outside of time and holds all knowledge, and the active, living sovereignty of God within creation.
Okay, I'm trying to visualize this. It feels a lot like modern video game architecture.
Oh, expand on that.
Well, think about a massive open-world RPG, like those games with 100 different programmed endings.
Right, yeah.
The game designer, in this analogy, the unknowable essence of God, knows all the possibilities. The designer literally wrote the code for every single permutation of the game.
Sure.
There is absolutely no ignorance. The designer knows every path you could possibly walk down. But the player's choices in the game determine which specific ending is eventually rendered on the screen.
That's a great analogy.
The game engine is responsive to the player's input up until the moment the final cutscene plays. That final cutscene is the execution, the imda.
That is a remarkably precise modern analogy.
Mm-hmm.
The game engine holds the infinite possibilities. It lacks no knowledge. But the actual rendering of the specific reality requires the interaction and the friction of the player.
Friction, yeah.
The Bab makes a critical distinction between potential change and sealed manifestations. In one of his treatises, he states that God has sealed by his decree that, after its execution, there is no further Bada.
So once the cutscene plays, that's it.
Exactly. But before that sealing, Bada sits above the throne of Baha. It's a supreme reality of divine self-disclosure. It's how God interacts with us.
And the Bab says something incredibly radical about this interaction. He writes, God willeth not save as his servants will, in that which accepteth the decree for the rectitude of requirement.
It's head.
I'll say that again. God willeth not save as his servants will. That places an immense, almost terrifying metaphysical weight on human free will.
It absolutely does. It preserves the profound moral seriousness of human effort. It means that history is not a closed loop.
Right.
We aren't just watching a movie that has already been filmed. God's sovereignty is a living sovereignty. It is actively responsive to the tears, the prayers, the failures, and the sacrifices of humanity.
And there is a devastating, profound historical example the Bab uses to illustrate just how real this is. He talks about the appointed time for deliverance, the ultimate eschatological hope of the religious community.
Yes, he draws on a well-known tradition regarding the timeline of spiritual deliverance. The Bab notes that the appointed time for the ultimate deliverance of the Sikh community was originally set for the 70th year of the Islamic calendar.
That was the decree.
That was the decree.
The 70th year. But that's not what happened.
No, because a profound tragedy occurred. In the 61st year of the Islamic calendar, Hussein, the grandson of the Prophet Muhammad and the third Imam, was brutally martyred, along with his family and companions on the plains of Karbala.
Right.
It was a complete moral collapse by the people of that time.
And what does the Bab say happened to the timeline?
The text states that because of this horrific event, because of this failure of human moral action, God's wrath intensified against the people of the earth. And through the explicit mechanism of Bada, God literally altered the divine timeline.
Wow.
He delayed the deliverance from the 70th year to the 140th year.
That gives me chills. A human tragedy, a failure of human morality on the ground, didn't just cause suffering in the moment, it actually shifted the cosmic timeline.
It altered the divine decree.
God responded to human action by pulling the outcome further into the future.
And it gets even more granular. When the followers in the 140th year broadcast this secret timeline and failed to maintain spiritual discipline, the decree was altered again.
You're kidding.
No, it was delayed indefinitely. This proves, within the Bab's cosmology, that human free will and striving are not just psychological comforts. They are actual metaphysical requirements for the execution of divine decrees. Your actions are the raw material God uses to execute his will.
Which fundamentally changes how you view your own life. It reminds you that your efforts, your daily choices, actually matter on a cosmic scale.
They absolutely do.
We aren't just playing out a pre-written script where our choices are illusions. Through this living sovereignty, through Bada, your actions are actively participating in the rendering of reality.
Precisely. Now, having established how human action alters reality on this macrocosmic historical level, the Bab then does something fascinating. He zooms in.
Okay, zooming in.
He zooms all the way in to the microcosmic level, showing how this tiered cosmology of possibility and alteration is woven into the very fabric of nature, and even in the human language itself.
And this is where things take a turn into some wildly esoteric territory.
Oh, yes.
Because when he zooms in, he starts using the language of alchemy and secret knowledge. Specifically, he delves into gematria. Now, for those who might not know, what exactly is gematria?
Gematria is the mystical practice of assigning numerical value to letters and words. In the Arabic and Persian alphabets, every letter has a corresponding numerical value.
So a word isn't just a sound.
No, it's a mathematical equation. In esoteric traditions, words that share the same numerical value are believed to share a hidden metaphysical connection.
So he's using this mathematical linguistic system alongside the language of alchemy. He details a cosmic journey, stating that God placed the letter of the elixir in its appointed station in all created things.
Right.
He invites the reader to journey to the throne to see these hidden realities mathematically arrayed.
Yes. He explicitly discusses the elixir, which was the ultimate goal of ancient alchemists, the substance that could transmute base metals into gold or grant immortality.
Okay, I have to ask the obvious question. Imagining the Bab sitting under house arrest in Shiraz, surrounded by guards.
Yeah.
Is he writing out literal Harry Potter-style alchemy formulas? Is he trying to turn literal lead into actual gold in his basement to fund the movement?
It's a vital question because if you read the text literally, It uses the explicit step-by-step language of metallurgy and chemistry.
Right, it sounds like an instruction manual.
But we have to understand the role of secret knowledge within this specific cosmological system. Within the Bab's worldview, earthly alchemy is a profound, incredibly detailed metaphor. It is an allegory for spiritual transformation.
Okay, so no philosopher's stone hidden under the floorboards. But why use such complex chemical language if he just means be a better person?
Because the mechanics of alchemy perfectly mirror the mechanics of the soul. The Bab writes about kindling the fire, but he identifies this fire as the greatest name of God, the divine revelation itself.
I see.
He says, you must kindle this fire to burn away the veils that hide the benefits within a substance. And the ultimate goal is to find what he calls the oil of the greatest red.
The oil of the greatest red. That sounds like the essence of the thing, the pure, unadulterated core.
Exactly. While it uses the language of minerals and base metals, it is entirely about the alchemy of the soul and the cosmos. It's about how the human spirit is refined.
It's about taking something base, something muddy and confused, and applying a divine catalyst to reveal its ultimate hidden perfection. There is this stunning, incredibly vivid imagery the Bab uses in another text to describe exactly this process. He is talking about the day of resurrection, the ultimate spiritual awakening, and he compares the dust of spiritual beings to gold hidden in the earth.
Yes, the metaphor of the churning of the earth. It's brilliant.
He says that at the resurrection, the earth churns like a water skin, and human dust is washed with water, separating the gold from the dirt, exactly the way cream is churned from milk.
It's a great visual.
Now, I love this because it's such an earthy, physical metaphor for a purely spiritual reality. The gold is already there in the dirt.
Right.
The cream is already there in the milk. It doesn't magically appear from nowhere. It just requires the right violent motion, the right catalyst to separate it out.
That is the absolute essence of Abbey alchemy.
Yeah.
The oil of the greatest red, the pure gold, is the hidden potential placed within the fundamental structure of creation by God. Every human soul contains it, but it remains hidden in the dirt of our daily habits, our egos, our fears. To extract it, to perfect it, requires the fire. It requires the divine revelation to act as a catalyst.
But practically speaking, mechanically, how does that happen? How does a person in 1845 or a person today actually undergo this washing process?
What happens through friction? It happens through the trials, the tests, and the spiritual discipline required to align one's own will with the divine decree.
Going back to Bada.
Remember Bada, right?
Mhm.
When you actively choose to align your actions with the divine will, you are applying the fire to your own base metal. The friction of choosing unity over conflict, of choosing servitude over ego, is the churning of the water skin. It separates your spiritual gold from your earthly dirt.
That is a staggering way to view hardship.
Yeah.
The friction isn't a punishment, it's the alchemy. It's the churning required to get the cream.
Precisely.
But here is where my brain hits a wall.
Okay, let's hear it.
If this alchemical and cosmic knowledge is so vast, so intricately woven into the mathematical letters of creation and the physics of the universe, how do we even begin to comprehend the God who built it?
Good question.
If God is this master alchemist, the supreme game designer who is constantly responding to our choices through Bada, is God just a really big, really smart human?
That is the million-dollar theological question. If God reacts to us, is God just a super being sitting on a cloud? And the Bab's answer is an unequivocal no.
No.
In fact, we cannot even begin to comprehend the essence of God. This transitions us into a profoundly complex area of his writings known as apophatic theology, or the theology of negation.
An apophatic theology, the theology of what God isn't.
Right.
We see this primarily in a text called the Sahifa Jafariya, where the Bab quotes extensively from a famous historical sermon by the 8th Shi Imam Ali al-Rida.
The core doctrine presented here is totally uncompromising. The text states, the foundation of knowledge of God is his unity, and the proper way to his unity is to deny him attributes.
Wait, deny him attributes. So I can't say God is good, I can't say God is powerful or all-knowing or merciful.
According to apophatic theology, to say God is anything is to limit God. Think about it. If you say God is powerful, you are implying there is a concept called power that exists alongside God and God possesses it.
Oh, I see.
But God is the creator of the concept of power itself. The Bab explains that God's essence is entirely, unfathomably separated from creation. All the names of God that we use, the merciful, the powerful, the all-knowing, are actually created things.
Are created.
They are realities God brought into existence. God himself, the ultimate essence, has no name, no description, no condition.
He writes this incredible sentence, God is existent without any existent thing. And even more radically, he says, whoso says he is the truth refers the matter back to creation.
It's radical.
Even calling God the truth as a human created limitation. Because truth is a concept human minds use to categorize reality.
Exactly. Because human language, at its core, is a created tool. It was invented to describe finite created things. You cannot capture the uncreated essence with a created tool.
Yeah, trying to describe God with human words is like trying to measure the ocean with a ruler. The tool is fundamentally incapable of the task.
Okay, I hear you, but I have to push back hard here.
Push back.
If God has no attributes, no name, no condition, and is entirely, fundamentally unknowable, what is the point of religion? Who are we praying to?
That's the terrifying part, right?
Right. Am I just talking to a terrifying, empty void?
Yeah.
If I say, Dear God, the merciful, and the merciful is just a created thing, am I just praying to a concept?
That is the exact existential crisis apophatic theology can induce. It strips away every comforting human notion of an old man in the sky. But the Bab provides the mechanism that saves it from nihilism.
Thank goodness.
We don't pray to the unknowable essence. We pray to the manifestation of God. We pray to the primal will. God steps his reality down into a form we can interact with.
Oh, like a cosmic step-down transformer for electricity.
Yes, that analogy works perfectly.
Because if you try to plug your kitchen toaster directly into the core of a nuclear power plant, it doesn't just fail to toast your bread, the toaster vaporizes.
Exactly.
The power is too absolute. You need substations, you need transformers on telephone poles to step that immense voltage down to 120 volts so your toaster can handle it.
And in the Bab's cosmology, the prophets, the manifestations of God, are those step-down transformers. They manifest the attributes, the mercy, the justice, the power, so that human beings can experience them without being spiritually annihilated by the unknowable essence.
That makes so much sense.
The Bab details this step-down reality extensively. He describes 15 distinct ranks of faith and letters. Spiritual reality is deeply tiered. And he uses a brilliant analogy from early Islamic tradition to explain why this tiering is necessary for our survival. The story of Abu Dhar and Salman.
Oh, this is a fascinating story. These were two early devoted companions of the Prophet Muhammad, right?
Yes, both deeply spiritual, both close to the Prophet. But Salman possessed a much deeper, more esoteric understanding of spiritual reality than Abu Dhar.
Right, and the Bab says that if someone from the third garden of paradise, which represents a lower rank of faith, like Abu Dhar, were to suddenly see the reality in the internal state of someone from the highest garden, like Salman, the truth would be so blinding.
So incomprehensible.
That the person from the third garden would think the person from the highest garden was an unbeliever. They would think it was pure heresy because their capacity couldn't handle the voltage of that higher truth.
The truth is always tailored to the capacity of the receiver. The essence remains forever hidden in the darkness of its own absolute light, but the manifestation acts as the interface.
This theology of negation, this absolute humbling of human language, it destroys the idol of our own limited understanding. It reminds you that no matter how much you learn, no matter how many deep dives you listen to or books you read, God is always infinitely beyond your concepts.
You cannot put God in a box because the box is made of human thought.
It forces a profound intellectual humility, which perfectly circles us right back to the Bab's posture of absolute servitude that we discussed at the beginning. If God is unknowable, the only appropriate human response is complete surrender.
But, and here is where reality comes crashing back in, we have just spent all this time exploring these mind-expanding, universe-altering cosmological secrets.
We really have.
We've talked about human action-altering divine timelines. We've talked about spiritual alchemy churning the earth. We've talked about a God entirely beyond human conception.
Yeah.
This is explosive, revolutionary theology.
It is entirely revolutionary.
And yet the Bab didn't want his followers running into the streets of Shiraz shouting about it. In fact, he demanded the exact opposite. We have to bring all this high theology back down to the dusty, dangerous streets of 1845 Persia.
Back to the eye wall.
Exactly, because holding this vast secret knowledge demanded absolute social caution and unity on the ground.
This is where the metaphysical hits the practical. The Baba is writing these cosmos-altering truths, but he is wrapping them in letters that explicitly say, stay inside, keep quiet.
Right.
We see this over and over in his instructions. He tells his followers, raise not a sedition, Conceal yourselves and abide in the chambers of safety.
He is enforcing a strict doctrine known as taqiyya, which translates essentially to prudent dissimulation, or concealing one's faith in times of extreme danger. He even quotes an Islamic tradition, "Taqiyya is my religion and the religion of my fathers. Whoever has no taqiyya has no religion."
To understand why this was so crucial, we have to remember the concept of Bada, the altering of the divine decree. The Bab understood that the ultimate success of this movement, the execution of the divine decree, depended entirely on the moral action and the survival of the community.
Yeah.
If they engaged in a premature uprising, if they provoked the authorities into massacring them, they would alter the divine timeline in a catastrophic way. They would be repeating the tragedy of the 61st year.
But to a modern listener, especially in cultures that prize absolute authenticity, where living your truth loudly is the ultimate virtue, this can sound incredibly jarring.
I could see that.
Isn't hiding your faith a form of cowardice? How do you reconcile holding the ultimate truth of the universe, knowing the secrets of spiritual alchemy, but being told by your leader to keep your mouth shut and hide in your house? It feels like a betrayal of the truth.
It's a very natural, modern reaction to view it that way. But viewing taqiyya as cowardice fundamentally misunderstands the ethical framework of the Bab's mission at this stage.
Right.
It is not cowardice, it is supreme strategic restraint.
Restraint.
The primary task during this period of extreme adversity was not martyrdom, it was maintaining communal unity.
He literally writes that sedition causing social chaos is worse than slaughter.
Yes, because chaos destroys the vessel of the community. The community must be protected so the cause can survive to its appointed execution, its imda.
And the Bab outlines a highly specific, agonizing instruction to the believers in the city of Qazvin.
Oh, Qazvin, right.
The situation there was incredibly volatile, a powder keg waiting to explode. He tells them that if denying the cause allows them to survive 1,000 mockeries, 1,000 taunts and insults from their enemies, they should do it rather than face death.
Face 1,000 mockeries rather than die. That requires a totally different kind of strength. It's easy, in a moment of passion, to charge into battle and die for what you believe in.
Sure.
But to stand there, knowing you hold the truth of the universe and let ignorant people mock you 1,000 times, and to swallow your pride and say nothing just to protect your community, that is agonizing.
Because what the Bab is teaching here is that the inner spiritual discipline required to stay silent when you know the truth, to endure mockery without retaliating, is actually a higher, vastly more difficult form of servitude than loudly seeking martyrdom.
Silence is a higher form of sacrifice. In an age of oversharing, where every thought has to be a public post, where constant public debate and defending your ego is seen as a virtue, the Bab offers a really radical alternative.
The immense power of restraint.
Sometimes, the most spiritually mature, courageous act is to protect your community by simply remaining silent.
It is the perfect alignment of the inner cosmos with outer prudence. You hold the fury of the hurricane inside while maintaining the perfectly clear, calm sky on the outside.
Beautifully put.
This has been an incredible journey. We started in the dead center of the storm with the Bab under house arrest in Shiraz, modeling a confusing, absolute servitude, becoming that clear window pane.
And we saw how that perfect servitude wasn't weakness, but the key that unlocks the cosmic machinery of Bada, where human action, human free will, and even human tragedy interact with divine possibility to literally alter the decrees of God.
We explored the alchemical secrets of the universe, learning how the friction of our lives is the fire that refines the gold hidden in our spiritual dust.
Right.
We stood at the absolute edge of human understanding through apophatic theology, realizing that our grandest words for God are just baby talk compared to the unknowable essence.
And finally, we saw how holding all that universe-breaking knowledge required the vital, earthy necessity of social restraint, taqiyya, and prioritizing communal unity over individual ego.
It is a breathtaking architecture of thought. It bridges the highest heavens with the dustiest streets of Shiraz.
It truly does. And I think it leaves us with a profound implication for our own lives, particularly regarding that concept of Bada, those unsealed decrees hovering in the realm of possibility right now.
If God's will is a living sovereignty, actively responsive to human action up until the final moment of execution, what unsealed decrees are currently hovering over your own life? What timelines are you actively shifting today in the quiet, hidden alchemy of your own private choices, long before the outcome is sealed?
A powerful question to carry forward.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep seeking, keep your minds open, and respect the vastness of the unknown. Remember, even if you are standing in the dead center, in the silent eye of the storm, you are still surrounded by the most powerful forces in the universe.